I just finished a 35-hour lecture series called Maps of Meaning by Dr. Jordan Peterson. Now, when he gave this series, he was a professor at the University of Toronto, a professor of psychology, and has since gone on to write a couple of books, and he has a podcast that I really enjoy, and I like a lot of Jordan Peterson's ideas. And this specific series was dedicated to unearthing or exploring the psychology behind what makes human beings find meaning and purpose in life. And there were a lot of really interesting ideas, but the very last lecture, the very last 8 minutes of the last lecture really hit home with me. They were so compelling, and the questions that he asked were so moving that I've listened to it over and over again. And then I realized that it's in that last 10 minutes that he actually talks about marriage as well. And I thought that I would share those last couple of minutes with you so you could hear the same questions and the same ideas that I've been listening to, or at least a summary of them. And my hope is that they have as moving as an effect on you as they do on me. So after this is over, I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit with my ideas and tell you why I think they were important to me. So I hope that you hang on and listen not only to that segment, but to my thoughts on it as well.
I have done my best to do what Dostoevsky does in his novels, which is I make a proposition and then I spend months or years trying to figure out if I can take the bloody thing apart, if there's something wrong with it, because I want to find out. I want to hit it with a hammer and see if it breaks. And what I've been trying to do is to tell you all the things that I've gathered, let's say, or laid out or articulated or discovered over the last 30 years that I have not been able to break with the biggest hammer that I could take to them. And I guess that's the fundamental one, is that I believe that the idea that lurks in these images, derived from very different cultures, it's the same idea. Life is suffering. Right. Indisputable. What do you do about that? You voluntarily accept it and then strive to overcome the suffering that's a consequence of that. And you do that for you, and you do that in a way that makes it better for other people. And then that works. And one question might be, well, how well does it work? And the answer is, the only way that you can find out is by trying it. That's it. That's the existential element of it. The proof is to be derived by the incarnation of the attitude in your own life. No one can tell you how it will work for you. It's the thing that your destiny is to discover that. And you have to make the decisions to begin with. It's like, because you can't do this without commitment. You have to commit to it first. That's the act of faith that Kierkegaard was so insistent upon. You have to say, I'm going to act as if being is good. I'm going to act as if truth is the pathway to enlightenment. I'm going to act as if I should pursue the deepest meaning possible in my life. And there's reasons to do none of those. They're real reasons. So it's really a decision. But you can't find out what the consequence of the decision is unless you make the decision. I think the same thing happens when you get married, by the way. Is that if you think you might leave, you're not married. And then you think, well, the marriage didn't succeed. It's like, well, maybe you were never married. Because the rule is, you don't get to leave. And there's a reason for that rule. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't situations where there should be exceptions made for that. That's not the point. The point is that there's some games you don't get to play unless you're all in. And the other thing that's so interesting about being alive is that you're all in. No matter what you do, you're all in. This is going to kill you. So I think you might as well play the most magnificent game you can while you're waiting. Because do you have anything better to do? Really? Why not pick the best thing possible that you could do? Why not do that? Maybe you could justify your wretched existence to yourself that way. I think you could. That's what it looks like. People find such meaning in the responsibilities they adopt. It stops making them ask questions about what life is for. If you have a newborn child, for example, unless you're really in a bad way, psychotically depressed, or maybe your personality really needs some retooling, you stop thinking about anything but ensuring that that baby is doing well. And if someone comes along and asks you an existential question about your commitment to that, the right response is, why are you asking me such stupid questions when this is manifesting itself right in front of your eyes? Like, how blind can you be? That isn't a time for questions about the meaning of life. The answer is right in front of you. And if you can't see it, it's not because life has no meaning, it's because you're blind. I mean, that's what the image of the Virgin Mother and the child is all about. It's like, what's the answer to the meaning of life? Here's an answer. It's like, well, I'm going to criticize that. Well, go right ahead. You know, it's like what you're like a what do you call that? A termite gnawing on a temple. There's no utility in that sort of criticism. It's blindness. And it's the same thing with regards to the path of the hero. It's like it glistens in front of you and you can criticize it. It's like, fine. Put the cart before the horse and see how far you get. So I thought, to bring full closure to the class, I was trying to solve this terrible puzzle that confronted me and many other people about how it was that human beings got themselves in such a tangle about what they believed. Such a tangle that we were pointing the ultimate weapons of destruction at one another, which, by the way, we are still doing. And I thought, okay, well, I understand that. We need our belief systems. They orient us. And that means there will be conflict between belief systems, and that can be a catastrophe. And that's being played out everywhere, again, in very many ways. What's the solution to that? Well, one possibility is there's no solution. It's just mayhem all the way around. Could be the case. But it seemed to me, as I delved into it, that the proper solution to that was to live properly as an individual, because you're more powerful than you think. Way more powerful than you think. I mean, God only knows what you are in the final analysis. You're blind to your own weaknesses, but you're also blind to your own strengths. And so then I think, well, if you got your act together, it'd be better for you, and instantly it would be better for your family, assuming they wanted you to get your act together, and not everyone does, and then it would be better for the community. It's like, how far could you take that? If you stopped wasting time, and if you stopped lying, and if you oriented yourself to the highest possible good that you could conceive of, and you committed to that, how much good could you do? Well, I would say, why don't you find out? So that's what I think you should do. You should find out. You don't have anything better to do. And there's nothing in it, as far as I've been able to tell, there's nothing in it but good. So maybe you could sort yourself out so that you wanted nothing but the good. And then maybe you could help make that manifest in the world. And maybe we wouldn't have all these terrible problems then. At least we'd have fewer of them, and that would be a start. So it's the answer to the problem of humanity is the integrity of the individual. That's the answer. So, and states that are predicated on that realization are healthy. So, and states that aren't are doomed to stagnation and catastrophic collapse. And personalities that are predicated on self-tyranny and the tyranny of others are doomed to collapse. So, and then you think, well, what's the barrier? And the barrier is, are you willing to accept the responsibility? And part of the answer to that is, reduce the damn responsibility until it's tolerable. You don't have to fix everything at once. You could just start by fixing the things that you could fix. Or you could even do it more. You could do it with even less self-sacrifice. You could start by fixing only the things that you want to fix. God, you can get a massive way that way. So do it. See what happens. That's what you should have been taught in university right from the beginning. It's like, aim at the highest good. Tool yourself into something that can attain it. And go out there and manifest it in the world. And everything that comes your way will be a blessing. And so all you have to do is give up your resentment and your hatred. I know that's a hard thing to give up because you have plenty of reason for it.
Okay, I love that clip so much. There's so much to unpack here, which is why I've listened to it so many times over the last couple of weeks. And I wanted to share just a couple of thoughts that really stood out to me. One is when he does talk about marriage, he says, if you're thinking about leaving, you're not married. There's some games that you don't get to play unless you're all in. Life is an all-in game. You can't escape it until you die. That's the only way out. And the only way to truly do marriage is to be all in. Now, is there going to be suffering? Absolutely. Life is full of suffering. Marriage is full of suffering. But what makes that suffering tolerable, what makes it bearable, is by taking a look at the suffering and saying, what can I do to either find meaning in this or to fix some of the suffering? And when you start putting effort into alleviating the suffering or becoming the type of person who can overcome that suffering, you find meaning and purpose. And there's this one question that has really stood out to me that I've been repeating in my mind over and over and over again over the last couple of weeks. And it's, how much could you do if you oriented yourself towards the greatest possible good? Imagine what you could accomplish. Imagine the difference that you could make in your life and the lives of the people around you if you just focused your actions and your thoughts and your intentions towards accomplishing the highest possible good. He says we oftentimes underestimate what we're capable of in the negative realm, but we also underestimate what we're capable of in the positive realm. It's really hard for us to have a clear idea of how much good we could accomplish as an individual. And so my focus as of late has been focusing on what are the things that I can control and what are the ways that I can create some order in my life? What are the points of chaos and pain and suffering that I have influence and control over? And then how much of that pain and suffering and chaos am I willing to take responsibility for? And I found that as I've started doing that, I have created a new sense of meaning in my life. Now, whether your relationship is in a tough spot right now or whether it's in a great spot right now, I believe that it can be better. I believe that if you oriented yourself towards the highest possible good, the beauty of that is that there's always something that you can tackle, something that you can affect or change for the better. And if you really oriented yourself towards the highest possible good and started tackling in bite-sized chunks the problems in life, you will find a profound sense of meaning. Now, I believe that is the whole purpose of marriage. The whole purpose of marriage is for us to grow and to unlock our potential. And that as we do that, we find true joy and fulfillment. And the byproduct of all of that is happiness. And so if you want a happy life, I think this is the recipe. Now, if you are in a place right now where you want to start understanding how you can take some responsibility, if this message resonated with you and got you excited, I want to make sure to invite you to participate in the Are We Roommates Summit. It's happening in just a couple of days. You just go to areweroommates.com. You can register for free. I've interviewed 30 of the top marriage experts on the planet about what it takes to get out of roommate syndrome, to get out of that sticky place where you might be feeling disconnected. You may be feeling a little unhappy, dissatisfied with life. And I will tell you right now that every single one of those sessions talks about an area of life where you can start to take responsibility and start to orient yourself towards the highest possible good. And I promise that when you start doing that, you will find meaning in your suffering and your life will get better. And that to me is, man, that's what life's about. So hope you check that out. It's areweroommates.com, and I'll be back next week with another cool episode. I'd love to hear what you thought about this one too, by the way. So shoot me an email if you really enjoyed it.